Let's talk about something huge that's happening in India's rental market. For 2025, there are massive new rules coming into play that are going to change everything. So whether you're a tenant trying to find a place or a landlord renting one out, you absolutely need to know what's coming. Let's jump right in.
Let me ask you something. You've probably been there, right? You're hunting for an apartment in a big city, you finally find the perfect place, and then you get hit with the security deposit. 6, 8, sometimes even 10 months of rent up front. It's a massive wall to climb, and honestly, it's one of the biggest headaches the government is trying to fix with these new rules.
So, to deal with that deposit issue and a whole lot of other problems, there's a new rule book on the scene. The whole idea is to bring some much-needed order and fairness to a rental market that, for way too long, has been running on informal and, let's face it, often pretty unfair handshake deals.
Okay, so the official name for this thing is the Model Tenancy Act of 2021, but you'll probably hear people calling it the Home Rent Rules 2025. And that's because 2025 is really the year all these changes, especially the digital side of things, are expected to be hitting their stride. The core mission is simple: create a modern digital system that actually protects both the tenant and the landlord.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, starting with the two things that cause the most stress: money and paperwork. And believe me, this is where you're going to see some of the biggest, most welcome changes.
And here it is, the headline news, the big one. For any residential property, we're talking your apartment, your house, the security deposit is now legally capped at a maximum of 2 months' rent. That's it, full stop. This is an absolute game changer for millions of people.
Just look at this chart for a second. The scale of this change is just staggering. You see the old norm in cities like Mumbai or Bengaluru? 6 to 10 months was pretty standard. The new law just slashes that down to 2. Now for commercial properties, it's a bit different, capped at 6 months. But this visual really drives home how much financial breathing room this gives new tenants.
Next up, making things official. You know those informal verbal agreements, the handshake deals where nothing's on paper? Well, their time is up. Under these new rules, if there's a dispute, a verbal agreement just isn't going to cut it anymore.
So the new way forward is a simple 3-step process, and it's mandatory. First, you have to have a written agreement. Second, that agreement needs a digital stamp. And third, both the tenant and landlord have to submit it to this new rent authority within 2 months of signing. This creates an official digital trail that protects everybody.
Okay, so we've got the money and paperwork sorted, but what about the day-to-day living situation? Let's look at how these rules set clear boundaries for everything from who fixes a leaky pipe to when your landlord is allowed to stop by.
This is brilliant because it's designed to stop so many of those classic arguments. The law now clearly spells out who's responsible for what. The landlord handles the big-ticket items, any structural issues, painting, major plumbing problems. The tenant, on the other hand, is responsible for the routine upkeep, cleaning out drains, fixing a busted light switch, or replacing a broken window pane. It's all laid out, clear as day.
And what about privacy? This is a big one. A landlord can't just drop in whenever they feel like it anymore. The rule is very clear. They have to give you at least 24 hours notice, and that notice can be as simple as an email or a text. Plus, they can only visit during reasonable hours, between 7 in the morning and 8 at night. This gives tenants a real, legally backed right to their own space.
Now, these new rules aren't just for tenants. They've also built in some really strong protections for landlords. A huge, long-standing problem has been tenants who just refuse to move out after their lease is over. Well, the Model Tenancy Act introduces some pretty serious financial penalties to stop that from happening.
So if a tenant overstays after their lease is up, things get expensive fast. For the first 2 months they stay, they are legally required to pay double the rent. That's a pretty powerful reason to move out on time.
But wait, it doesn't stop there. If they continue to stay after those first 2 months, the penalty gets even steeper. For every single month after that, they'll have to pay 4 times the original rent. This gives landlords some serious leverage to get their property back without a huge fight.
And maybe one of the most important changes is fixing the broken dispute system. In the past, if you had a serious issue, you'd end up in civil court, where your case could just sit there for years, sometimes even decades. That whole system is being thrown out. So instead, the new law is setting up special rent courts and tribunals that only deal with these kinds of issues. And what's their goal? To resolve any dispute within 60 days. 60! Going from years to just 2 months is a revolutionary improvement that promises quick, fair decisions for everyone.
Okay, so after hearing all these positive changes, you're probably thinking, this is great. It all applies to me, right?
Well, this is where things get a little complicated, and we have to talk about a really important detail about how this law actually works across India.
So, this is the one question that you, as a renter or a landlord, absolutely need the answer to. Are these rules the law where I live? And the answer, unfortunately, isn't a simple yes or no for the whole country.
Here's why. The name Model Tenancy Act is the key. It's a model, right? Think of it as a template that the central government created. It only actually becomes law when your specific state government decides to adopt it. So as you can see, states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Assam have already done it. Many others are working on it, but you have to check the specific status for your state.
So, here's the thing. Even if your state hasn't officially signed on yet, this is the direction the entire country is headed. And that brings us to the single most important piece of advice for anyone signing a rental lease in 2025 and beyond.
This is the bottom line, the one thing you have to take away from all this. No matter what, you have to insist on a written, digitally registered agreement. The era of handshake deals and verbal promises is over. That formal document is your only real safety net. It locks in your rights, it clearly defines everyone's responsibilities, and it's your ticket to using that new, fast-track legal system if something goes wrong. A formal agreement isn't just a good idea anymore, it's absolutely essential.